The teen grew up in a small, crowded neighborhood where noise never really stopped. Buses passed all day, neighbors argued, children played in narrow streets, and loud radios filled the air. In the middle of all that sound, there was one quiet corner inside a small apartment where an old piano sat against a wall. The piano was not shiny. Some keys were yellowed, and a few made soft clicking sounds when pressed. Still, to the teen, it was the most important thing in the world. The teen did not come from a family of musicians. No one in the house knew how to read music at first. What they did know was hard work. Long hours, tired hands, and constant worry about money were part of daily life. Music was not seen as a career. It was more like a hobby, something nice, but not necessary. Even so, the teen felt drawn to the piano from the very first time they touched it. The piano had not been bought new. It had been given away by a distant relative who no longer had space for it. When it arrived, it barely fit through the door. It had scratches on its side and one pedal that stuck. To others, it looked like a burden. To the teen, it felt like a gift meant only for them. Every day after school, the teen rushed home, dropped their bag, and went straight to the piano. Homework could wait a little. The piano could not. Fingers pressed the keys slowly at first, searching for the right sounds. Mistakes happened often. Notes clashed. Sometimes the teen felt frustrated and wanted to stop. But something inside always pushed them to keep going. There were days when the teen practiced in silence, pretending to play while imagining the sounds in their head. This happened when neighbors complained or when family members needed quiet. Even without sound, the teen moved their fingers carefully, memorizing patterns and shapes. Music lived in their mind even when it could not be heard. School was not easy for the teen. Teachers noticed that the teen often seemed distracted. While lessons were being taught, the teen thought about melodies and rhythms instead of numbers or dates. Some classmates laughed when they found out about the piano. They said it was old-fashioned, useless, or a waste of time. The teen did not argue. They simply stayed quiet and held on to their dream. That dream did not have a clear shape at first. The teen did not imagine fame or large crowds. All they wanted was to play well, to play in a way that felt honest. Music became a place where the teen could say things they never spoke out loud. When emotions felt too heavy, the piano helped release them. When life felt unfair, music made it softer. The teen learned mostly by listening. Online videos played late at night with headphones on low volume. Fingers copied what eyes saw on the screen. Sometimes the internet connection failed, and the video froze. The teen waited patiently, hands resting on the keys, not wanting to lose the moment. Practice continued even without guidance, guided only by feeling. The family noticed the dedication. They saw the teen practice when tired, when sick, even when the house was cold. They admired the effort, but worried about the future. They reminded the teen to focus on studies, to think realistically. The teen listened respectfully, but did not let go of the piano. One afternoon, a teacher at school overheard the teen playing during a small event. It was not planned. The piano was in a corner of the hall, mostly ignored. The teen sat down and played without expecting anyone to notice. When the song ended, the teacher approached quietly and said the teen had something special. That moment stayed in the teen's heart for a long time. Weeks later, the teacher shared information about a youth piano competition. It was a serious event, judged by professionals with strict rules and high standards. Most participants came from music schools or had private tutors. The teen felt fear rise immediately. This world seemed far away from their reality. Still, the teacher encouraged them to apply. The idea of competing scared the teen. Standing on a stage in front of strangers felt overwhelming. The teen imagined people judging every note, every mistake. At night, sleep was difficult. Doubt crept in, whispering that the teen did not belong in such places. Yet something stronger than fear slowly grew. A quiet hope. The teen thought about all the hours spent practicing alone, about the old piano that had listened without judging. Maybe this was a chance to be heard. Not to win, but to share the music that lived inside. The application process was simple, but felt heavy. Filling out forms, choosing a song, imagining the moment of performance. The teen did not choose a flashy piece. Instead, they chose a song that meant something deeply personal. It was a song that reminded them of home, struggle, and resilience. Every note carried memory. As the competition day approached, the teen practiced more carefully than ever. Fingers became stronger, movements smoother. Still, mistakes happened. Each mistake felt bigger now. Pressure slowly built. But the teen reminded themselves why they played in the first place. The night before the event, the teen sat alone by the piano. The room was quiet. Family members slept. The teen played softly, almost whispering through the keys. There was no audience, no judges, no fear. Just music. In that moment, the teen felt calm. The next morning arrived too quickly. Clothes were simple and clean, nothing fancy. The teen looked at their reflection and took a deep breath. This was not about appearance. It was about sound, feeling, and truth. As they stepped outside, the city felt louder than usual. Every sound seemed sharper. The teen held onto their music sheet tightly, even though they had memorized the song. It was a small comfort. The competition hall was larger than expected, bright lights, polished floors, and a grand piano at the center. Other participants warmed up confidently. Some spoke loudly about their lessons and achievements. The teen stayed quiet, feeling small but determined. Waiting backstage, the teen closed their eyes and imagined the old piano back home. The worn keys, the familiar smell of the room. That memory gave strength. No matter what happened next, the teen knew one thing for sure. Music had already changed their life, and soon it would be tested in a way the teen never expected. The hall was brighter than the teen had imagined. Lights hung overhead, reflecting off polished floors and shiny instruments. Chairs were arranged neatly in rows, and at the front, a long table held the judges' papers, pens, and bottles of water. The teen's heart pounded as they walked in. Every sound seemed louder than normal. The shuffle of shoes on the floor, the soft murmur of participants, the quiet hum of conversation. Each step felt heavier than the last. Other participants were already at the grand piano, tuning their instruments, stretching their fingers, and speaking confidently. Some wore neat matching outfits. Some carried folders filled with sheet music. Their expressions were calm, sometimes even smug. A few whispered to each other, glancing at the teen with a curious look. The teen felt the weight of their own simple clothes and worn shoes. For a moment, self-doubt crept in. They wondered if they really belonged in this place at all. The teen took a deep breath and reminded themselves why they were there. It was not about competing with others. It was about sharing music that came from the heart. Every note practiced alone at home, every small success and failure had led to this moment. With a quiet shake of their hands to remove tension, they moved closer to the stage. The first few participants played flawlessly. Their fingers danced across the keys with precision and confidence. Each piece was complex, showing technical skill and speed. Applause followed each performance, and the teen watched quietly, feeling both awe and fear. Some of the judges nodded, taking notes, but one or two seemed impatient, tapping pens on the table or whispering to each other. The teen tried not to notice, focusing on the piano that awaited them. Finally, it was time. The stage manager called the teen's name. A hush fell over the hall as the teen walked toward the piano. Every step felt measured, deliberate. The grand piano loomed large, its black surface gleaming under the lights. The teen touched the keys briefly, feeling the smooth surface and the slight resistance that was normal with a grand piano. Unlike the old piano at home, this one was perfect, precise, and intimidating. The teen took another deep breath and sat down. Fingers hovered over the keys, ready to play. The song chosen was simple but meaningful, full of emotions that had built over years. Just as they pressed the first note, a sudden interruption happened. A stage assistant accidentally knocked over a chair behind them, producing a loud crash. The sound echoed through the hall, startling the teen. Fingers froze for a second, and the audience murmured. A judge cleared their throat sharply. "Are you ready?" they asked, their voice carrying a mix of impatience and doubt. The teen nodded quickly, swallowing the lump in their throat. They tried to remember the melody, the rhythm, the feeling behind each note. But the interruption had broken the fragile calm they had built. The teen began to play again. Softly this time, almost hesitantly. The first few measures were shaky, each note slightly uneven. The audience whispered among themselves. Some competitors glanced over with smirks, as if saying, "You shouldn't be here." The teen's hands trembled slightly, but they kept going, repeating the notes in their mind to stay focused. As the song continued, another interruption came. This time, one of the judges tapped their pen loudly on the table, signaling impatience. The teen's heart sank. They had imagined pressure before, but nothing like this. Every eye seemed to be judging. Every sound seemed to criticize. The teen felt a strong urge to stop, to walk away and hide behind the walls of their quiet home. But something inside refused to give in. Years of practice, hours of solitude, and countless nights of dreaming had built resilience. The teen took a deep, steadying breath and closed their eyes for a moment, recalling the familiar feeling of the old piano at home. Its slightly sticky keys, the warmth of the room, the quiet moments when no one was watching. That memory grounded them, and their fingers began to move again. The teen decided to ignore the interruptions. They focused on the song, letting emotion guide their hands rather than fear. Notes started to flow more naturally. The music became smoother, stronger, more confident. Even though it was still imperfect, it had heart. The teen played with feeling, pouring all frustration, hope, and courage into every measure. Something began to change in the room. The whispers quieted. Competitors stopped smirking. Judges leaned forward slightly, paying closer attention. The hall, which had seemed so intimidating moments ago, became a place where music could exist freely. Each note reached the audience, carrying the teen's story, the struggles, the determination, the quiet power of persistence. The teen reached the middle of the song. Fingers moved more confidently, and the notes began to resonate. The melody was not just sound. It was emotion made tangible. Some in the audience closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Even the stage assistant who had caused the first interruption seemed to pause and listen carefully. But just as the teen was finding their rhythm, another small distraction occurred. A page of sheet music fluttered to the floor from a nearby stand. The teen's eyes flicked toward it instinctively, and a short pause happened. It was enough for a few audience members to murmur. The teen felt the familiar sting of embarrassment and panic rising again. For a moment, they considered stopping, apologizing, even walking off the stage. It would have been easier. Nobody would have blamed them. But the teens shook their head and returned their focus to the piano. They remembered something the teacher had once said. Music is not about perfection. It is about truth. With that in mind, the teen pressed on. The second half of the song began, and a quiet confidence emerged. The teen played with a flow that felt natural, letting each note carry emotion rather than worrying about mistakes. Every pause, every soft key, every loud chord became part of a story. The audience felt it. The hall was no longer a place of judgment. It had become a space of connection. As the last notes approached, the teen added a small flourish, a personal touch that was not in the sheet music, but had grown from years of practice at home. The sound filled the hall, lingering in the air. There was a brief moment of complete silence as the teen lifted their hands from the keys. The interruption, the pressure, the doubts, all of it, seemed to vanish in that instant. Then the audience reacted. A ripple of soft applause began, growing louder with each second. Some judges leaned back, surprised, even impressed. One of them seemed momentarily speechless, unable to hide their astonishment. Competitors exchanged quiet glances, perhaps realizing that talent was not always about appearances or formal training. The teen rose from the bench, slightly trembling, feeling relief and pride at the same time. The interruptions had been many, and the pressure had been intense, yet they had finished. Music had survived. More than that, it had spoken. The performance had not been perfect, but it had been true. Walking off the stage, the teen felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, exhaustion, and hope all swirled together. The first real test of performing under pressure had passed. The teen now understood something important: interruptions, judgment. And fear could not stop them if they trusted their music. Backstage. The teen's hands still shook slightly, but they were filled with a quiet determination. This was just the beginning. The experience had shown that the journey would not always be smooth. Challenges would come, distractions would happen, and people would doubt them. But with resilience, focus, and heart, the teen could face whatever lay ahead. The next performances would still be difficult. The judges would still have high standards. Other participants would still look confident and skilled. Yet, the teen had learned something essential. Music was not only about playing the right notes. It was about courage, feeling, and truth. And in that hall, in that moment, the teen had proven to themselves that they could rise above interruptions and pressure as they packed up their sheet music and prepared for the next round. The teen smiled quietly. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, they felt a sense of belonging in a world that had seemed so distant and intimidating. Every step, every note, every moment of doubt had led to this inexperience that would shape the teen's path forever. The competition was not just a test of skill. It was a test of heart. And the teen had passed, not by perfection, but by perseverance. The teen stepped backstage, heart still racing from the interrupted performance. Sweat clung to their forehead, and fingers still trembled slightly from the adrenaline. They sank onto a small bench, taking a moment to breathe. The applause had been kind, but the doubts still lingered. Could they really continue? Could they face another audience, another judge, another possible interruption? The thought made their chest tighten. Backstage, other participants moved with practiced ease. Some whispered quietly to each other, comparing notes and talking about what they would play next. A few glanced at the teen, curiosity or maybe surprise in their eyes. The teen tried not to notice. They focused inward, recalling the teacher's words. Music is not about perfection. It is about truth. The truth had to guide the next step, whatever it might be. A stage assistant approached, clipboard in hand. "You're next for the second round?" they said briskly. The teen nodded, standing slowly. Every step felt deliberate, measured. The hall seemed larger than before, brighter and more intimidating. The grand piano waited in the center, its polished black surface gleaming under the lights. Fingers hovered over the keys for a brief moment, then settled. The teen closed their eyes, remembering home. The old piano, slightly worn and imperfect, had never judged them. Its keys responded to every feeling, every emotion, every mistake. That piano had been a friend through long nights, lonely afternoons, and moments of despair. For the teen, it had been more than an instrument. It had been a teacher, a comfort, and a companion. Opening their eyes, the teen took a deep breath and began to play. This time, they decided not to fight against the fear, but to allow it to flow into the music. The first notes were slow, deliberate, carrying a weight that reflected the tension they felt. The audience leaned forward slightly, sensing the emotion in the performance. The teen's hands moved carefully, each note a story in itself. Partway through the piece, a slight misstep occurred. One note was struck too softly, barely audible. For a moment, panic threatened to take over. The teen's instinct was to freeze, to stop, to apologize silently and walk away. But they reminded themselves that mistakes were part of music. They were not failures, they were part of the truth. With a quiet breath, the teen moved on, letting the melody continue uninterrupted. The audience reacted differently this time. There were no whispers, no smirks. Instead, there was attention, a stillness that filled the hall. Every eye seemed focused on the teen, every ear attentive to the sound. The music began to flow more freely now, stronger, more confident. The teen allowed their emotions to guide the fingers, letting sadness, hope, and resilience shape every chord. As the song progressed, the teen remembered all the times they had felt invisible. At school, when classmates laughed at the idea of playing piano. At home, When the family worried about practicality and stability, each note became a message. I am here. I am not afraid. I have something to share. The music carried their story, subtle but powerful, into the hearts of everyone listening. Halfway through the performance, a small smile appeared on the teen's face. Confidence was growing, built not on arrogance, but on experience and persistence. Fingers moved more fluidly, responding naturally to the emotion behind the music. The audience was silent, absorbed, as if the hall had become a single space filled only with sound. Even the judges leaned in, pens paused over their sheets, watching closely. Then an unexpected interruption came. A light flickered above the stage, drawing the teen's attention for a brief second. The teen's hand wavered slightly, and a few notes did not sound quite right. The audience murmured softly, sensing the hesitation. For a fleeting moment, the teen considered stopping. The weight of expectations, of judgment, and of the day's earlier interruption pressed down like a heavy curtain. But instead of succumbing, the teen made a choice. They closed their eyes, shook their hands lightly to shake off the tension, and returned to the music with even more intention. This time the notes were not just sounds, they were declarations of courage. Each chord carried resilience, each rhythm spoke of determination. The teen was no longer playing to impress or compete. They were playing to express. The hall seemed to respond. A quiet energy shifted, moving through the audience. The soft shuffling of papers stopped. Some people held their breath, completely drawn into the teen's performance. Every note resonated, not only in sound, but in emotion. The teen could feel the connection, a silent acknowledgement from those who were listening that this music was different. It was honest, raw, and unforgettable. The teen reached the climax of the piece. Fingers flew over the keys, moving with precision, but also with passion. Every note carried the weight of years spent practicing alone, or of every struggle overcome, of every moment of doubt, and every small victory. The music filled the hall, surrounding everyone in a tapestry of sound and emotion. Even the judges who had seemed impatient before were now captivated, their faces revealing surprise and admiration. As the final notes approached, the teen felt a surge of emotion. This was not about winning or losing anymore. It was about proving to themselves that interruptions, mistakes, and fear could not take away their voice. With a deep breath, they played the closing chords slowly, letting each sound linger in the air. The last note faded, leaving a silence that was heavy with feeling. For a moment, no one moved. The audience seemed suspended in the aftermath of the music. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then growing into a strong, sustained wave. Some stood, clapping enthusiastically, moved by the power and emotion of the performance. The judges exchanged glances, clearly impressed. One judge, who had seemed critical earlier, leaned back, speechless, unable to hide their astonishment. The teen rose from the bench, slightly trembling but filled with quiet pride. They had faced interruptions, distractions, and doubt, and yet they had finished. The performance had been imperfect in small ways, but it had been true, full of heart and courage. The teen realized that this was the real reward, the ability to stand in front of people, to play honestly, and to be heard. Backstage, the teen was met with a mix of congratulations and curiosity. Other participants approached, some with admiration, some quietly questioning how the teen had managed to play with such feeling despite interruptions. The teen smiled modestly, still catching their breath. They did not boast or compare. They simply felt gratitude for the experience and for the chance to express themselves. The stage assistant, who had caused the first distraction, offered a nervous apology. The teen shook their head gently. "It's okay," they said. "It happens. I just kept playing." The assistant looked relieved and impressed. The teen realized something important. Mistakes, interruptions, and accidents were part of life. What mattered was the choice to continue, to persist. To let the music speak, the teen took a moment to reflect on what had just happened. The first round had been about facing fear. The second round was about choosing to continue despite challenges, choosing to trust themselves, and choosing to let the music flow, even when everything seemed uncertain. This realization filled them with a quiet confidence that had not been there before. Hours later, after resting and preparing for the next stage, the teen thought about the journey so far. From the small apartment with the old piano to the grand hall, filled with lights and strangers, every step had been a test. Every challenge had built resilience. Every interruption had been an opportunity to prove courage. The teen understood that music was more than skill. It was persistence, emotion, and truth. That night, the teen returned home, tired but satisfied. Their fingers still ached slightly from the performance, and their mind was filled with memories of applause and silent admiration. They sat at the old piano at home, playing quietly, reflecting on the day. The familiar keys were comforting, grounding them after the intensity of the stage. They realized that the music had been a bridge between fear and courage, between doubt and confidence. The teen knew the journey was far from over. More performances awaited, more challenges, more judges, more audiences. But for the first time, they felt ready. They had learned that interruptions, mistakes, and judgment could not stop them if they trusted their heart and their music. Every note played from now on would carry that lesson. And so, the teen practiced that night with a renewed sense of purpose. Each key pressed, each chord struck, was a reminder of courage, resilience, and the power of choice. They had faced the pressure, the interruptions, and the judgment, and they had emerged stronger. The music was no longer just a dream, it was a voice. It was one that would continue to grow louder with every performance. The teen closed the piano lid gently, now feeling calm and determined. The experience of the day had been transformative. It had taught them that performing was not just about playing notes correctly. It was about heart, honesty, and courage. And with that understanding, the teen knew that whatever came next, they would be ready. The teen arrived at the competition hall early. The next day, carrying a quiet mix of excitement and nervousness, the memory of the previous round lingered in their mind, the interruptions, hesitation, and finally the feeling of triumph when the music had carried through. Today was different. Today it was the final round, and the stakes felt higher. The hall seemed larger, more formal, almost intimidating. Rows of seats stretched back farther than the eye could see, and the stage lights shone brighter, reflecting off the polished piano and gleaming floors as the teen walked toward the backstage area. Other participants were already preparing. Some tuned their pianos with careful precision, their fingers moving expertly over the keys. Others whispered among themselves, sharing last-minute strategies or comparing sheet music. The teen observed quietly, feeling the familiar tug of nerves, but also a growing determination. They had faced interruptions before. They had played despite doubt and fear. Now it was time to play fully, to let the music speak more than ever before, sitting on the bench backstage. The teen closed their eyes and pictured the old piano at home. It was worn and scratched, imperfect in many ways, yet it had been a faithful companion. Its keys had taught the teen patience, perseverance, and trust in their own abilities. Thinking of that piano brought comfort and focus. The teen took a deep breath, letting the image fill them with calm energy. When the stage manager called the teen's name, a hush fell over the audience. They walked toward the grand piano, each step deliberate and careful. The lights were blinding at first, and the teen's heart raced, but they reminded themselves to breathe. They reminded themselves why they were there, not to impress anyone, not to compete for attention, but to share something real. Sitting down, the teen placed their fingers lightly over the keys. A moment passed as they gathered their thoughts. Then, with a soft exhale, the first notes began to flow. The sound was different from the previous rounds. It was bolder, more confident, yet still delicate and expressive. The teen allowed the music to guide them, letting emotion dictate the pace and intensity. Each chord seemed to tell a story: struggle, hope, persistence, and quiet triumph. The audience leaned in, caught by the honesty in the music. Some closed their eyes, allowing the melody to wash over them, to feel the story within the sound. Others sat perfectly still, as if afraid to move and disturb the connection. The judges, who had previously seemed impatient, now watched with growing interest, pens momentarily forgotten in their hands. The teen could feel the attention, yet it did not overwhelm them. It only strengthened the resolve to play fully. To let every note carry meaning, midway through the piece, the teen introduced subtle variations. Improvisations that reflected years of practice and personal expression. Fingers moved quickly over the keys, each motion precise, yet infused with feeling. The music swelled and softened, rising and falling like waves in the ocean. The teen felt fully in the moment, each note flowing naturally, not forced, not calculated. The hall seemed to disappear, leaving only the piano, the music, and the feeling of connection. The teen remembered the interruptions of the previous day, the falling chair, the tapping pen, the fluttering sheet music. Instead of fear, these memories now fueled determination. Each disruption had been a lesson in resilience, and today, nothing could shake focus. The teen's hands moved with confidence, responding instinctively to the emotion behind each chord. Mistakes, if any occurred, were absorbed into the music unnoticed by the audience, transformed into part of the story as the piece approached its climax. The teen's fingers flew over the keys with controlled energy. The sound was powerful, commanding, yet still intimate. The melody carried a deep personal significance, one shaped by years of private practice, moments of doubt, and quiet triumphs. Every chord struck resonated with authenticity, drawing the audience into the experience. Some listeners had tears in their eyes, moved by the raw emotion conveyed in a single performance. The teen could feel the intensity of the moment. Every eye was on them. Every ear was listening. Every heart in the hall seemed to beat in rhythm with the music. Yet instead of fear, the teen felt a sense of release, as if all the tension and doubt of years had been transformed into sound. They were no longer just playing. They were speaking, communicating a truth that transcended words. A few notes before the end, the teen added a delicate flourish, a subtle touch that had been practiced quietly at home but never shown on stage. The sound was gentle, yet profound, lingering in the hall and capturing the attention of every listener. The audience held their breath, sensing that something remarkable was unfolding. Even the judges seemed captivated, leaning forward, their expressions unreadable but attentive. Finally, the teen reached the last note. Fingers rested lightly on the keys, allowing the sound to fade naturally. Silence followed, heavy and full of emotion. The hall seemed to pause, suspended in the aftermath of the music. For a moment, there was nothing but the lingering resonance, the quiet echo of each chord. Then slowly applause began. At first, it was soft, tentative, as if the audience needed time to process what they had just heard. But it grew steadily, swelling into a powerful wave of recognition. Some people stood, clapping and cheering, moved by the honesty and emotion of the performance. The teen stood, taking a small bow, heart pounding, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and disbelief. The judges were visibly affected. One of them, who had seemed impatient in earlier rounds, leaned back in their chair, speechless, eyes wide with astonishment. Notes and scores seemed insignificant compared to the power of the performance. The teen had done more than play notes perfectly. They had conveyed something deeply human, something impossible to ignore. Backstage, the teen was met with congratulations from other participants, some offering smiles of genuine admiration. Others simply shook their heads in disbelief, quietly impressed by the courage and skill displayed. The teen accepted the praise modestly, feeling gratitude more than pride. The moment was not about recognition. It was about having the courage to play truthfully, despite interruptions, fear, doubt. The stage assistant who had caused the first disruption approached nervously. I'm sorry for what happened yesterday, they said. The teens smiled gently, shaking their head. It's okay. I kept playing, and that's what mattered, they replied. The assistant seemed relieved, and for a brief moment, the teen realized that even mistakes or accidents could be transformed into positive experiences if handled with courage. The teen spent the rest of the day reflecting on the performance. Walking through the quiet streets on the way home, they replayed the music in their mind, remembering every note, every chord, every subtle touch. The applause and reactions of the audience lingered in memory. But what stayed strongest was a sense of personal triumph, the feeling of having faced fear and fully expressed oneself. That night, back at home, the teen returned to the old piano. Fingers brushed over familiar keys, producing sounds that were comforting and grounding. Playing softly, they remembered the journey, the early days of practice alone, the nervous performances, the interruptions, the doubts. Each experience had built resilience, courage, and a deeper understanding of music. As the teen played, they realized that the performance had changed them. Music was no longer simply a personal escape. It had become a bridge between inner feelings and the world, a way to connect, inspire, and move others. The interruptions, mistakes, and fear had not defeated them. Instead, these challenges had shaped the performance, making it more authentic, more human, more powerful. The teen knew that the final round of the competition had revealed something important. True music was not about perfection, technique, or appearance. It was about courage, heart, and the willingness to be vulnerable. Every note, every pause, every subtle touch carried a piece of the performer's soul. And in that hall, in front of the audience and judges, the teen had shown that their music mattered. As the night deepened, the teen reflected on what lay ahead. Awards and recognition were possible, but the real achievement was the experience itself. Standing on stage, facing pressure and interruption, and still playing with honesty and emotion was a triumph that no medal could fully measure. The teen understood that future performances, challenges, and interruptions would come. But now they had confidence that they could face them. The quiet of the apartment felt different that night. The old piano, familiar and comforting, seemed to respond to the teen's playing with warmth and encouragement. Every chord struck reminded them of the journey of perseverance, resilience, and courage. Music had become more than a skill. It had become a voice, a tool for connection, and a reflection of the human spirit. The teen played late into the night, practicing not for competition, but for expression. Each key pressed carried emotion. Each chord resonated with authenticity. They knew that music, when played with heart, could reach people in ways words never could. The audience in the hall had felt it. The judges had felt it. And most importantly, the teen had felt it themselves. As the night ended, the teen closed the piano gently and sat quietly, reflecting on the day. The experience had been transformative. Fear, interruptions, and doubt had tested them. But through music, they had found courage and truth. The teen understood now that the journey was not just about competitions or recognition. It was about the power of music to express, connect, and heal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more performances, and more opportunities to grow. But tonight, the teen allowed themselves to feel the quiet pride of accomplishment. They had faced fear and interruption, and they had triumphed. The music had spoken, and in doing so, it had revealed the strength and resilience of the human heart. The teen lay down that night with a sense of calm determination. The journey was far from over, but they now carried the knowledge that no interruption, no judgment, no moment of fear could silence their music. Their story, expressed through each note, was beginning to be heard, and the world slowly was listening. The teen woke early, sunlight spilling gently into the small apartment. The day of the final announcement had arrived. The previous performances had already tested courage, resilience, and focus, but now the results would be revealed. There was excitement, yes, but also a quiet fear. What if it wasn't enough? What if all the practice, the courage, and the late nights were still not enough to impress the judges? Breakfast was simple, eaten slowly. The teen's mind replayed the performance one last time, analyzing each note, each subtle flourish, every chord. They remembered the interruptions, the small mistakes, the way the audience had reacted, and the silence that had followed the last note. Despite the nerves, there was a sense of pride or realization that the performance had been honest, heartfelt, and true. That thought carried the teen forward as they prepared to leave for the hall. The competition hall felt enormous as the teen walked in. Though it was the same place where they had played before, The rows of chairs, the polished floors, and the bright lights were all familiar now, yet each detail seemed magnified by the anticipation of the final results. Participants moved quietly, some pacing nervously, others whispering with friends or mentors. The teen took a deep breath, reminding themselves to stay calm and focused. Backstage, the teen found a quiet spot to sit, trying to collect their thoughts. It had been a long journey to reach this moment. Months of practice, years of dedication, countless late nights alone at the old piano, and every moment of doubt that had tried to hold them back. Each experience, each challenge, had built resilience. And now it all led to this instant. When the stage manager called the participants forward, the teen walked to the center, feeling the weight of the moment. The judges' expressions were serious, but there was a hint of warmth, a recognition of the effort and courage it had taken for each performer to reach this stage. The teen's heart raced, but there was also a calm sense of readiness. They had already faced fear, interruptions, and doubt. Now, it was only a matter of waiting for acknowledgement. The head judge began to speak, their voice steady, but carrying a sense of gravity. They praised the participants for their dedication and courage, noting the talent and heart evident in each performance. When the judge mentioned the teen by name, describing the performance from the previous round, the teen felt a flicker of nervous anticipation. They listened carefully as the judge recounted the moments on stage, the pauses, the interruptions. In the way the teen had continued playing with courage and honesty, there was a silence that followed, long enough for the teen to feel it in their chest. Then the head judge spoke again, their voice carrying a weight that made everyone lean forward slightly. The teen's name was announced as a finalist, recognized not only for technical skill, but for the heart and authenticity shown in the performance. The teen's fingers twitched unconsciously, a mixture of disbelief and elation spreading through their body. Audience members clapped softly at first, then more loudly as they realized the significance of the announcement. Competitors smiled, some nodding in respect, acknowledging the teen's courage and skill. The teen's chest swelled with a quiet pride. This was not about winning a medal yet. It was about recognition, validation, and the knowledge that their music had truly been heard. The announcement continued. The teen was invited to return to the stage for a final performance, a demonstration of the song that had captivated everyone in the earlier rounds. The teen felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but it was tempered by confidence. They knew the music, knew the emotions, and knew the power of honesty in performance. Taking a deep breath, they walked toward the piano once more, every step feeling more certain than the last. As the teen sat down, fingers poised above the keys, a hush fell over the hall. The audience seemed to lean in, waiting. The judges were attentive, eyes fixed on the piano. The teen closed their eyes briefly, imagining the old piano at home, its worn keys, and the countless hours spent alone. That image grounded them. The teen began to play, letting each note flow naturally, guided by feeling rather than fear. The music filled the hall with warmth and depth. The teen's hands moved confidently, shaping the melody with subtle dynamics and emotional nuance. Each chord resonated, carrying the story of struggle, perseverance, and hope. The audience responded unconsciously, leaning in, closing eyes, or nodding slightly as they were drawn into the performance. Even the judges seemed captivated, their expressions softening, pens still, and eyes focused entirely on the teen. The performance reached a climax, with the teen's fingers moving fluidly across the keys, each note expressing years of dedication, every moment of doubt overcome, and every small victory along the way. The sound was rich and full, yet delicate in parts, showing control and emotion together. The teen felt a deep connection with the music, as if every note was a conversation between their heart and the audience. When the last note lingered and faded, silence enveloped the hall for a brief moment. Then, applause erupted, stronger and more heartfelt than any the teen had heard before. Some people stood, clapping and cheering, moved by the power and honesty of the music. The teen rose from the bench, heart pounding, a mixture of relief, pride, and joy flooding through them. The judges, too, reacted. One judge, who had seemed stern and critical in previous rounds, was was now visibly moved, leaning back and shaking their head in amazement. Others nodded quietly, scribbling notes or whispering to one another, clearly impressed. The teen realized that the performance had done more than demonstrate skill. It had conveyed emotion, courage, and authenticity, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. Backstage, other participants approached, offering congratulations and words of admiration. The teen accepted the praise modestly, feeling gratitude more than pride. They knew the applause and recognition were not the ultimate goal. The true achievement was having the courage to play honestly, despite interruptions, pressure, and fear. The stage assistant who had caused the disruption in the first round came forward again, this time with a genuine smile. "You were amazing," they said quietly. "I'm sorry for what happened, but you turned it into something incredible." The teen smiled back, understanding fully. Mistakes, accidents, and interruptions were part of life, but how one responded defined the outcome. Courage, perseverance, and authenticity had transformed challenges into triumphs. As the day continued, the teen received invitations and congratulations from teachers, mentors, and even some local musicians who had attended the competition. Each acknowledgement was meaningful, but the teen remained humble, knowing that the journey was far from over. The experience had opened doors, but it had also strengthened an inner belief. Music was a voice, a means of expression, and a way to connect with others. Walking home that evening, the teen reflected on the journey from the small apartment with the old piano to this moment of recognition and respect. Every late night, every hour of practice, every moment of self-doubt had contributed to the performance. Every interruption, every mistake, every challenge had been transformed into a lesson, shaping not only the music but the performer. Back at the apartment, the teen sat at the old piano once more. Fingers moved over familiar keys, producing sounds that were comforting and grounding. The music was softer now, reflective, a quiet celebration of growth and perseverance. The teen played slowly, savoring each note, remembering the courage it had taken to continue, the obstacles overcome, and the connections made through music.